Hello everybody, this is Caitlin with Mr. Ron LeGrand for another Ask Ron. How you doing today?
I'm outstanding.
Outstanding. Busy day today?
Yeah. Busy day.
All right, so we got a lot of questions coming in. They're all starting to flow in.
I hope they're easy ones.
Yeah, our first couple are from Gina Morgan of Mississippi.
Mississippi, okay.
When buying owner financing, when is the deal actually transferred from the seller to my land trust?
At the day of closing. That's when first you get a purchase and sale agreement, and then the attorney closes the purchase, pulls out the deed and gets the seller to sign it, and after that, your trust owns the property. Just want to make sure your attorney is using a deed to a trust now. And you can send him the one out of my system, and he can fix it whatever he wants, but it's called warranty deed to trustee.
Okay. Her next question is, does my attorney create the warranty deed of trust?
I just answered that.
Yep, you just did.
Yeah. Send him mine if he don't have one of his own.
And also, should I do a 5-year balloon if the seller requests it?
I wouldn't. I'd certainly try not to. Don't ever let it come out of your mouth. If a seller has a loan on it, I would say, okay, well, I will cover your payment until your loan is paid off, okay? And that's the way I'd write it up. If it's free and clear, then you got to arrive at a payoff time with a seller, but I don't ever let the word 5-year balloon, because sometimes they'll finance it for 30 years, sometimes 15 years. Don't ever be the first to name that time. What's the longest you can give me? We usually get at least 15 years. And let them respond.
Alrighty. Our next one's from David Johnson of Florida.
David?
Do I use the same techniques to purchase a home for myself? Do I use a pretty house technique?
So what? Do you think you're special, David? Why wouldn't you use the same techniques? Go find a house that you can buy with owner financing, no personal guarantee. Or take over the debt subject to, no personal guarantee. Move in. That's all there is to it. No loans to apply for. Of course, you're going to pay the closing cost to take title to the property. Buy it in a land trust. You own the land trust. Hopefully, if you're married, you and your wife own it. Tenants buy the entirety. Okay, it's that simple.
Okay. Our next one's from Michael Morrow of Tennessee.
Michael?
I recently got a property under contract before I knew about Ron LeGrand and terms. My original exit plan was to flip the property. I have approved funding from a hard money lender but haven't finalized. Now I'm holding off on closing because I want to convince the seller to redo contract with terms. Is it possible to redo contract? And what could be possible?
Anything's possible, Mike, between two people. When it works for both, they can change it at any time. Now, but you've already conditioned your seller, they're going to get cash. The real question is, now would they consider a terms deal even if it's a much higher price? So that's between you and the seller to discuss. Of course, if they won't, then you're stuck to the one you have right now. However, if I were you, instead of getting a private loan to buy it, if I were you, I'd put it out on the market and wholesale it, because there's a whole bunch of greater fools out there right now to pay a whole lot more than they should for the property. And if you put it out there at a half decent price, they're going to come, and they're going to come quick.
Alrighty. Our next one's from Sebert Lewis of Florida. I have a free and clear property in Palm Beach County, Florida area.
Right.
I spoke with the owner, and after asking the 3 main questions, he agrees to a monthly payment of $2,250 per month for 15 years.
Okay.
He is not asking for anything down or any interest.
That's
How
nice.
would I complete the purchase and sale agreement and find an attorney to take this closing?
Well, I can't answer that question for you on this simple call. You got to kind of go paragraph by paragraph for that. However, there is a DVD or a video on the Gold Club site that you can go hunt down on how to complete that contract. But paragraph 2B is the one you've got to fill in, that you're just going to have to study or get some help, because it's the one that names the terms that your attorney has to put in the note from your trust to the seller. So obviously, if you don't know how to do that, you might want to just write down what you have already agreed to and maybe ask your attorney how to fill in the blanks on your contract. But I'll bet you if you studied it, you can see which places to check. You didn't tell me whether he had an existing loan, or did he?
He didn't say.
Okay. If he has an existing loan, you already know your payment is his payment. I would try to make the months for as many months as his loan is, then yours pays down right at the same time his does. I leave the interest rate blank because you don't know what it is yet. You didn't even tell me whether you're paying him more than he's paying you. So I don't know any of these answers, so I can't fill in paragraph 2B for you.
Okay. Our next one's from Edgar Alexandre of Florida.
Edgar.
He has a couple questions for us. The first one being a total newbie and trying to manage my budget. In your opinion, what would be the best training path to follow and get some traction?
Well, you're going to have to get to Quick Start Real Estate School if you want to do this business. Now, it costs about $4,000 for you and a guest. If that, but we finance it with $1,500 down and no credit check for a year with no interest. If that's out of reach for you, your only next best bet is our terms course, which we sell for $897, which goes step by step through the terms process. But honestly, other than that, you got tons of videos on the Gold Club, and there's a lot of training within that. But of course, there's no course from beginning to end all in one module. You just have to piece it together. So you just have to do what your budget will allow until your budget will allow more, just like I did when I started.
Alrighty. His next question is, I believe in older videos you mentioned that when buying properties, you preferred subject to and now you'd rather use lease option. Is this
Nope,
correct?
that is not correct. Subject to is dangerous for the seller. And I don't buy hardly any of them subject to. I buy them on a wraparound mortgage to protect the seller. Because if I take it subject to, the seller will never be able to go qualify for another loan, because their payment shows on their credit report, and their debt ratio will probably kill their chances. If I buy it on a wraparound mortgage, they have proof that I'm paying them the same amount that they're paying their bank, so they should have a wash on income. Lease options is something that I rarely ever do personally, but is a very common tool. So if you're lease optioning from the seller, then obviously the loan is not, the title is not being transferred, so there's no issues there, and there's no closing cost. So that is a simple way to do it. I would rather own it, but if it's my first deal, maybe I don't care. Maybe I'd just rather get the check and worry about owning it later. So this is a decision that you're going to have to make.
Okay, he also asks, is it AX still also an option?
X is still an option, but you get a check and you're done and you're out. It's kind of like wholesaling a house. But if you're brand new and you want that first check, again, it's certainly an option. Put it under contract with terms and sign it to a buyer that's coming along to give you $10,000, $15,000 to take over your contract.
Okay, and his last question for Edgar is, when should I use an attorney and when should or could I use a title agency?
Well, if I'm buying for cash or selling for cash, I don't care about, I can use a title agency. But if I'm buying or selling with any ongoing relationship with seller or buyer, I insist you use an attorney to close it to protect you. A lot more documentation's got to be done, and then there's still people hanging out there that can come back and cause a problem later because you're not through with them yet, like you are on an all-cash sale. You need an attorney when you're ready to close a deal, buying or selling. If I'm lease optioning it from the seller, I don't need an attorney. But if I'm installing a lease option tenant buyer, I do. If I'm buying it from the seller, obviously I have to have an attorney do the closing. If I'm selling it with terms, I'm going to have a closing attorney do that closing. So you need an attorney when you're ready to close and you know you got a deal.
Okay. Our next one's from Harry Ridge of Texas.
Harry.
So the attorney closing my transaction added a few things to the warranty deed to trustee I got from your Gold Club site. He changed the title of the deed to from warranty deed to trustee to general warranty deed.
That's fine.
I asked him to change it. He refused, saying the title to the deed does not affect the conveyance.
And you should not be telling your attorney what to do, okay? Yeah, that is perfectly fine. Let him do what he knows what to do. All right?
Okay. Well, you pretty much got him covered there.
When you get a law degree, then you can give your attorney legal advice. In the meantime, let him give it to you.
Our next one's from David Hillhouse of Mississippi.
Hey, Dave.
I am a Quick Start graduate, and I have all the home study materials.
Yep.
You said many times that this is a numbers game.
Yes.
Can you give me an idea of how many VAs, virtual assistant, leads, I'll have to go through to get a deal meeting, and how many deal meetings before I get signed?
How can you expect me to answer that question? Now, first of all, when you said yes leads, you lost me. You're to call all leads, yes and no. You'll get more deals out of the no's than you will out of the yeses if you learn to use my new no script, because there's 4 times more, many of them, way more no's than yeses. Secondly, how can I possibly tell you how many calls you got to make when I don't even know you, don't know how well you handle the call, don't know if you even make the calls? That's all going to depend on your ability to handle that closing call. I can tell you, you need to get it down to where you can do about 1 out of 10. You won't do that in the beginning. I just talked to a master's student this morning. They made 30 phone calls after they left my boot camp a month ago. They got 1 deal closing and 2 more pending. I don't know how many you should get. If you call yeses, you probably will get more than if you don't call. If you probably get more out of yeses than the no's as far as the number per call. But the problem is there's a lot more no's. So their mission is to get good at the phone call and then generate enough leads to call. And next thing you know, you're going to start getting deals, and you're not going to have but a handful of leads to make that happen. But you certainly don't just sit the no's aside and forget them. You call them as well with my new no script in hand. And then you'll know quickly whether they're going to be able to sell and take a payment without cashing out of the house. And of course, that's the whole mission. If they are, then you go to the $1 million script, find out what terms they will take. But I can't tell you how many. And also, people ask me all the time, well, how many will my VA generate in an hour? What else you got your VA doing? I don't know. What's the quality of the leads you're sending them? Because if you're sending them quality leads that they generated offline, they're going to be a lot better leads than the ones online. They're easier to reach and they're easier to convert. So it all depends on the rest of the story. The point is, go call a bunch of leads and keep track of how many you had to call to get a deal. How about that? And then quickly, you'll cut that down to twice as many.
Awesome. Okay. Our next one's from Phill Heimlich of Ohio.
Phill.
You often advise never to guarantee debt.
I often do and often will. Yes.
But whenever we buy subject to, we are legally promising the seller to make his payment every month.
Where on earth did you get that from, Phill? You must be reading the wrong book. When you buy on subject to, you're not legally doing anything. You're promising you're going to make the payment morally, and I sure hope you keep your promise, but you have no legal ramifications whatsoever from buying a house subject to. If you don't pay that house, nobody's going to sue you because it's not your debt. And there is no legal agreement that you're going to make that payment. So that is definitely not a personally guaranteed debt.
Okay. Our last couple questions are from Saejin Chung of New Jersey. I'm about to close using a wraparound mortgage. The seller still has a mortgage in place. My exit strategy will be to sell on a contract for deed. How should I handle the insurance policy?
Well, I think you call it a land installment sales contract in New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're buying it and then you're immediately reselling it, your buyer is responsible for getting an insurance policy, an owner-occupant policy, and before closing. Now they got to name you as the second mortgagee and the bank as the first mortgagee on the policy. And then they got to make sure that gets to the bank, and the bank is asked, usually by the insurance company, to release the old policy off the house and put this one in place. So the bank is not paying 2 insurance policies and wasting your money. Your insurance company can guide you on that. I use NREIG. Well, you can't do that because if you sell to an owner-occupant, the NREIG will not occupy. They only do non-owner occupied properties. So make sure your buyer gets insurance and then let the insurance company decide how they want to handle the existing policy. Worst case, you got to go back and get your seller to contact the bank and get them to cancel that policy after they got a new one in place.
Got it. Okay, their next question was, do I have to foreclose on a contract for deed, or can I do an eviction because foreclosing in New Jersey takes 1 year?
It's not an eviction. This is something you should discuss with your attorney. It is shorter than a regular foreclosure, but it's different than an eviction because they have an equitable interest in the property. They own the property. They just don't have the deed yet. So check with your attorney on that one. I can't answer it.
Okay. And then the last question is, can I sell my beneficial interest of my land trust via seller financing?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Another thing you're going to have to ask your attorney about, and if you do that, then you're selling personal property, you're not selling real property. And that might cure all kinds of issues. Might even avoid transfer tax. Again, ask your attorney. But yes, you can do that. In other words, you retain the property in the trust, but you're selling the trust to someone else. Okay?
That
That it?
sounds fun.
All right, guys, go out and get something done. By the way, I can make an announcement right now, make a note. On October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, scheduled for the rehab boot camp, 3-day rehab boot camp. But Jay Connor and I are going to team up, and we're both going to do the boot camp, and we're going to do it in Moorhead City where he lives, so we can go look at some properties that he's got rehabbed and see how he runs his business and learn how he finds deals and the whole works. So you'll probably get notified on that. Be October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. If I were you, I'd block out those dates, because this is a one-time only event where Jay and I team up. This guy's renovated 400 houses. I renovated 1,000. He netted $2 million last year, and you're going to see how he did it. And he only did 28 houses. So maybe this is a guy you want to come listen to, and then the old guy will be there as well. See you next week. Go get some deals.